With A Farewell to Arms releasing in quite literally a couple days, you might expect me to be looking to the future. But today, let's take a look at the past. Fork Parker's holiday profit hike. If you're anything like me, well, first of all, you should probably seek professional help, but you also had no idea that this game existed, and definitely didn't know that it was made by Dodge Roll Games themselves. That's right, in 2014, 2 years before they would release Enter the Gungeon, Dodge Roll created this game. Not that you know, it's not anywhere on their website, and it's barely brought up elsewhere, so I thought I'd take some time to go over this semi-important part of Dodge Roll's history. The first and most important thing. Does this game include dodge rolls? No. Which might be why they don't talk about it more, and why their Twitter says that Enter the Gungeon is their first game, because the description has an extra clarification of with dodge rolls, which would logically exclude the profit hike. Now, with that out of the way, who is Fork Parker? He is not a character created by Dodge Roll Games. In fact, he dates all the way back to 2009, meaning he's older than Dodge Roll as a studio. He started off in a small promotional piece for Serious Sam HD: The First Encounter. Here's that clip.
I used to go to the bathroom 3 or 4 times a night, but now I go a lot more. Terry! Leon! You want a hot dog?
And so Fork Parker was born. He'd become a recurring character at Devolver Digital, becoming depicted as an older man with a large white moustache. Devolver Digital would appoint this fictional character the fictional position of Chief Financial Officer within their company, a position he's held ever since. Fork Parker's personality has developed over the years through a multitude of references and Easter eggs in Devolver-published games, particularly in the Serious Sam series where he started out. And so we reach 2014, when Dodge Roll decides to make a vertical platformer starring the fictional chief financial officer of the company who would be publishing it. There you go, the story of Fork Parker. On a side note, Fork Parker maintains an active Twitter account where he sends out in-character tweets about the video game industry, so that's interesting. I didn't know where to put this in the Fork Parker tale, so I tacked it on the end. Back to the game at hand. Fork Parker's holiday profit hike. The story is bare bones at best. In this universe, Fork Parker still works as the CFO of Devolver. Fork Parker is told by the chairman of Devolver that revenue is down and that he'll have to do something to make it pick up again. Parker jumps in his private helicopter and flies to a mountain that for some reason has money strewn about it. I don't know, I'm not pretending like this makes sense. Parker has to climb to the top of this mountain while hopefully collecting enough money to make a net profit after all the money he'll inevitably waste on the medical fees from being injured on his trek. And that's the story. Not exactly Lord of the Rings. Well, what about the game's mechanics? The game is a vertical platformer with the goal being to reach the very top of the weird money mountain. You're able to throw red ice anchors that can stick onto anything except the soft snow. When you place one anchor, nothing happens, but when you place a second anchor, it'll be connected to the first by a rope that you can hang on and zipline across. Clever and precise use of these anchors is essential to the platforming challenges in the game. Like I said before, the goal is to collect money along the way, with Fork losing money every time he dies due to medical fees. You can go into the negative without a game over, but reaching the end of the game without a net profit will give you the bad ending. Some of the spike gauntlets are very Is that a mountain cube? In a dumb festive sweater? Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. This game is the origin of the mountain cube from Enter the Gungeon. A fact that wasn't even listed on the ETG wiki until I mentioned it in my Discord server. Those lines in their Ammonomicon entry about them existing outside the Gungeon and wearing sweaters are reference to this game where they're actually found on a mountain, as their name would suggest. These mountain cubes are capable of levitation, however, and don't seem too concerned with actively attacking Parker. This puts Fork Parker's holiday profit hike in the same universe as Enter the Gungeon, or considering which game came first, does that mean that Enter the Gungeon takes place in the universe of Fork Parker's holiday profit hike? It really makes you think. As far as the other enemies go, you have snowmen with no noses and cool sunglasses, pun probably intended, wall-climbing blue yeti, non-denominational penguins, flying sentient festive sweaters that flap their neck hole like it's a mouth. Did I mention this game was weird? Now that I've sung the game's praises, it's time to go over its numerous flaws. The game's controls can be tricky, and the gauntlets the game puts you through can be absolutely brutal. You'll probably notice during play that the mechanic of momentum can make Fork really hard to control in the air. It's either impossible to alter him from his current trajectory, or he'll overcorrect and fly ass first into spikes at the speed of light. Which one he's going to choose is really hard to judge. There's this one problem that only really affects a single area of the game, but I hate it so much. In the game, if Fork hits a ledge, he'll grab on. This is really useful and helpful during almost every part of the game. Except here. This one specific snowball dodging section makes me want to stick my fingers in a paper shredder while it's on fire. In this particular segment, at least if you do it the way I do, has you standing there, on the snow step, just out of reach of the snowman's snowball. I then have to time it and jump, placing my hooks to move on. However, I suppose that snow block to the left must have gained an unhealthy obsession with Fork in the mere seconds he's been standing there, because as he comes down from the jump, it decides to magically magnetize him to itself, sucking him from the air for him to pathetically flop down on its edge like a dead fish, right in the path of the snowball. It can be avoided, but it's so annoying and so obviously broken that it just gnawed away at my nerves. It's far worse if you're going for the money bag beside the snowman as well, since you'll have to put up with it much more. There's also snowball physics. Snowballs can be thrown by the same enemy in the same direction, with the same speed, in the same place. All variables could be the same, but for some goddamn reason, a slight variation can occur in the snowball's flight path, causing it to fly a couple pixels higher or lower. Doesn't sound like a problem, and most of the time it isn't, except for this section. In this section, normally the higher platform is a safe spot to stand, since most of the time the snowballs hit the sides or bottom. But as you can guess, that completely random mutation in trajectory will make the snowball fly up and over the platform, killing you if you stand there. It forces you to play as though it's going to do this every time, because you don't know if it will or not, and if you don't take preventative measures, if it does happen, there's no way you're going to survive. This affects other areas, not just this one, but this is one of the most egregious examples. But enough of that. As I established earlier, thanks to the mountain cubes, we know that this game and Gungeon exist in the same universe. Since Fork Parker still works for Devolver at the beginning of this game, which we know for a fact because the achievement for beating the game with a profit is called How the Fork Saved Devolver, this means that the company of Devolver Digital actually exists within the universe of Gungeon. This could only be better if there's also a small game studio in the universe of Gungeon who made a video game about a weapon-themed dungeon and published it through Devolver. This might also be a canon explanation for the Devolver rounds, which is the last thing I expected to learn. But there's more. You might have noticed that when I showed the boardroom earlier, I censored the Devolver CEO. Now you get to know why. The CEO appears to be the Black Starsh, the hegemony official who accepted bribes from the convict and yet still betrayed her to try and get the best of both worlds, the boss of the convict's past. Also what? Why? Why him? That just seems really out of nowhere. He also appears in a spar with Fork Parker if the player achieves the good ending, and it's definitely him, no doubt about it. I don't really know what this could mean. Did the Black Starsh work at Gungeon Universe's Devolver Digital? Was this before or after his career in the hegemony? Did they decide to reuse a character design from the Profit Hike for their next endeavor? It's just a confusing spanner in all of this. Maybe it's his near-identical twin brother, the very dark Grey Starsh. That's all I really have to say about Fork Parker's Holiday Profit Hike. It's a simple game, simple story, simple objectives, brutally hard platforming, etc. And it really only seems to have paved a couple cobbles on the road to Gungeon for dodge roll, but is also 100% covering and not forgetting. Now, I have something to confess to you. When I said that this was Dodge Roll's first game, I may have lied. It definitely came before Gungeon. But there's an even more elusive title in Dodge Roll's past. And, well, that's a video for another time. But anyways, subscribe to PewDiePie. See ya! This could only be better if there's also a small game studio in the universe of Gungeon who made a game about a weapon-themed dungeon and published it through the top.